Hello, I'm Wendy Alpine, Public Relations Director for Hyperbaric. Welcome to our next session of Hyperbaric's HPP Innovation Week 2022. How does HPP enhance R&D and product development efforts? We're glad you're joining us today. I'll be interviewing Joyce Longfield, R&D Principal of HPP Applications of Good Foods, a company that makes guacamole and other delicious plant-based dips and sauces using high-pressure processing. Joyce has an extensive background in food science and high-pressure processing and has a passion for educating professionals and consumers about the benefits of HPP. She began her career as a consultant on regulatory guidance for companies using high-pressure processing to meet the USDA, FDA, and Health Canada requirements. In 2020, she became principal of HPP applications for Good Foods. I'd like to welcome Joyce Longfield of HPP to the HPP Innovation Week.
Thank you, Wendy. Nice to finally put a face to your name.
Oh, great. Thank you, Joyce. Thanks for being here today. I'd like to start out by asking you a little bit about how you got interested in high pressure processing in the food industry, and also tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, it was very serendipitous looking back at it now. In 2010, I was just completing my Bachelor of Education, and I was looking to be a teacher. And going into the school system, you weren't allowed to take any allergen-based products, in particular nut-based products. And so I had an idea for a no-nut peanut butter, essentially, using chickpeas, but I really had no understanding of food manufacturing and shelf life extension. And so I was introduced to the HPP technology to extend the shelf life of that product. But in 2010, the demand and manufacturing for allergen-free facilities was not what we know it to be today, where allergen-free is very important to us. So I kind of put it on the back burner at the time, but the state of the HPP industry, in particular in Canada, where I was living at the time, was also not what it is today. And the regulations for Health Canada required HPP to go through a novel food application process, which is basically like almost writing a science paper to get the government to approve the technology for each particular type of food application company wants it to represent. And so a lot of the companies were struggling to get the approval of Health Canada for the technology. But having a master's of science, I was very familiar with writing technical papers and understanding what type of research approaches to take in order to present the necessary data that the government was asking for to get the products treated by HPP approved. So that's kind of where my background started with HPP, because I really had to understand the technology. And because my background was in molecular science, I kind of was able to marry the two together and understand what is happening to food and bacteria at the molecular level when you apply 87,000 pounds of pressure to it. Mm-hmm. And so each component of the petitions that you have to submit to the government, there's a nutritional component, a chemistry, a toxicology, there's all these different sections. And so you have to understand what type of data they want and how do you break down that data for them. And so I did that for a few years. And eventually, now, I think it was in 2015, Health Canada actually removed HPP out of novel. So companies no longer have to go through that process. And a part of that was the petitions that I had worked on for the companies and submitting them to the government. And basically, it just meant that the government wanted to feel comfortable that HPP did not adulterate the food in any which way, that it still made it fit for consumption. And in the US, HPP was never put into novels, so companies never had to go through those types of steps to get their food into the marketplace. So HPP was expanding at a much more rapid pace within the US. But it was still met by regulatory challenges in terms of how do you validate the HPP process to meet your HACCP, your food safety plan requirements. And because of the background that I had in writing these petitions to Health Canada, I was able to help a lot of the US-based companies in designing their validation studies for their food safety plans that demonstrated HPP is doing for their product what they're writing in their food safety plan.
Okay. And then I guess after that, you ended up doing some work for Good Foods.
Yeah, so they were one of the first companies that I met in 2011, and they were manufacturing a variety of different products, not just guacamole at that particular time. And if in a perfect world, if you could afford to validate every single SKU that you made, that's great. But the reality of it is that validation studies are very expensive, and it really isn't very scientifically necessary to have to validate every single product if the formulations are so similar. So one of the areas that I helped with Good Foods was just looking at all the variety of products they make and how could we create groupings and validate, kind of the worst case scenario product for each grouping, and just kind of the relationship just kind of progressed. We always had a lot of synergies from the beginning because the owner and founder, Kurt Penn, he has a very entrepreneurial spirit, and so do I. So we always had a really great connection, and here we are today, working for Good Foods.
That's awesome. Great. So you've been at Good Foods for a while. So how important a role does research and development play at Good Foods?
Well, and as I just mentioned, Kurt having such an entrepreneurial spirit, he immensely values innovation and progress, and but at the same time, he is also very strategic in that you don't want to get too far ahead, right? You have to be financially responsible too. So you have to find that right balance between advancing the company through new products or other areas of innovation within the company. But at the same time, you don't want to burn through a bunch of cash, right? So there's a good balance. And I think that's what makes Kurt such a successful CEO and owner and founder, is understanding how to balance that.
Okay. What does your R&D team consider when thinking about bringing new products to market?
In this day and age, I think whether you're in food industry or any industry, everybody knows what an important role social media is playing. We're all kind of inundated with it. We're seeing how quickly every type of trend changes. And for the food scene, where trends used to start in restaurants isn't really necessarily the case anymore, right? We're definitely seeing a ton of trends and momentum happen on social media. So just being aware of what's going on, not just within restaurants, but social media is just playing a huge role in our awareness of what type of products we should be looking at.
What would you say are some of the new products your R&D team is working on at the moment?
Plant-based is definitely our focus. Again, Good Foods has always been a company that wants to make products as if you were making them in your kitchen, right? Using kitchen ingredients, names you can pronounce, not a laundry list of chemicals and fillers. And so, it just kind of seems that plant-based, how we're in this massive trend of plant-based, is a perfect synergy for Good Foods. We've really embraced it and taken it to as authentic as we can, and really include vegetable forward components as our ingredients. So for us, plant-based isn't just substituting the animal component for some other type of starch or filler or binder or something like that. We really want to be vegetable or produce forward with our products.
So are some of them, I guess some of them are in development right now. So what are they like what ingredients are, say, being combined to produce these new products?
Right. Well, right from when we launched our plant-based queso in 2019, we were pleasantly surprised to see that the type of feedback and response we got from a lot of consumers and influencers on social media was the way that we had designed it, where the first ingredient is cauliflower, the second ingredient is red peppers, right? So this was resonating with the consumer, that they were seeing that we were putting vegetables forward and not starting it off with water and then like a type of starch or something. And we've kind of continued to take that approach. So we're launching 2 new products this year, a roasted red pepper and a roasted garlic. And so again, we've held strong to those principles and kept cauliflower up at the top of the list. There's no roasted red pepper in the garlic, but obviously there is in the roasted red pepper. So just maintaining to keep those produce forward ingredients was very important to us, and still trying to work with the flavors coming from those particular ingredients, right? And not adding any type of flavors, whether it be natural or artificial.
You kind of addressed this before, but can you expand a little bit on how do taste, texture, functional ingredients figure into your R&D? You mentioned social media and how now that's more of an influencer when developing new products. But do you have like a team that reviews the social media, or what does that process look like?
Yeah, we have a very strong marketing team who I feel that all of my colleagues just are, individually interested in following those types of social media platforms, right? So it's not even that they're doing it, say, for their job. And the same goes for myself. Like most of my social media accounts that I follow are food-based, right? Because I'm just always in awe to see what people are creating and what they're coming up with. And so we just have very genuine conversations within the company. Sure, there's definitely times where there's structured and organized conversations, but I would say majority of our conversations just happen very organically. Somebody sending someone a message, did you see this video? Did you see this product and stuff? And the great thing about our R&D department is if we do see something, we have the liberty to try and see if we can make it on the bench. Like we are very fortunate that we have that type of support system.
Why did Good Foods start the company using HPP? And what do you see as the main benefits of high pressure processing?
Sure. That's it's such a fascinating story. And I think if Kurt was on this call, he would do a much better of telling it. But he owned a chicken sausage company prior to starting Good Foods. And he was introduced to the technology kind of at the tail end of when he was leaving that business. And he really just saw that the HPP technology as kind of the future of ready-to-eat food. So when he decided to start Good Foods, he knew that it had to be treated by HPP. There was never a question in his mind. So he actually bought a machine before he even had a product developed. And that's how kind of committed he's been to the technology to this day.
And what about the main benefits that you see with high pressure processing for fresh products?
Well, and his first initiative was for the food safety aspect of it, 100%. And in my experience, I think that is definitely the number one reason that people seek HPP, because it is a universal kill step, meaning it doesn't matter if the microorganism is at the very center of the package or at the outside of the package. The pressure is 100% uniform, so it's going to address your microbial concerns at all all areas of that package, of that product. Whereas if you think about traditional technologies like pasteurization, right? So typically you heat and it starts from the outside and comes in. So you might still have something that survives at the center of your package. It's not 100% uniform. So you kind of just don't get the same guarantee as you would with HPP. So food safety is probably primarily number one. But so closely followed then is going to be the superior quality that you achieve with your product. Because it is cold water pressure, you're not destroying all those wonderful organoleptic properties of your food. It still tastes amazing. You're still getting all the nutrient benefits. It's just, there's just no comparison when you look at alternative heat-based methods or chemical preservative methods. So it's far superior shelf life extension technology.
Mm-hmm. What kind of advice would you give companies that are in the product development stage and looking to implement high pressure processing?
Now we're fortunate. There are many third-party providers out there. So maybe back when Kurt was starting up, there was very little options for him to work with somebody else to provide the HPP service. There were a few people out there, but really you were almost kind of forced to buy your own machine back then. And not everybody is financially capable to do that. And so fortunately, there's enough third-party providers within the US presently that I feel pretty confident to tell people that you can find somebody to work with, right? Like, don't feel that because they're so far away that it's not going to make sense for you. Because ultimately, the shelf life extension you gain from the HPP technology will help you get into a better manufacturing rhythm so that you can make that long drive to reach a third-party provider. And at the same time, the brand protection that you will gain from now using HPP is also kind of worth the drive. You've just really protected yourself from recalls at this point in time by starting to use HPP. So I know that a lot of times people just see the logistics of it as a hindrance, but then when you kind of think about the bigger picture of it, it's sort of worth that hindrance.
I'm going to just throw in another question here about, the importance of picking out the right HPP machine for your company. And what is it about hyperbaric that you would say is the reason you're working with them?
I think that at the end of the day, it comes down to the people you're working with, because I'm sure there's small engineering differences between the HPP machines themselves, but really they all kind of have the same science, right? They're all going to, at the end of the day, apply pressure either way. So I think the bigger picture is what is the relationship of the company that you're going to go into, because you are going to have a relationship with them. You're going to rely on them. You're going to rely on their resources. You're going to rely on their expertise, their availability for you. So, I think that's just a huge part of this. This isn't like buying another piece of equipment where there's lots of different options and providers out there. So you really would have to think about like who is this team that you're going to be kind of committing yourself to, and are they the team that you want to work with? And I think that Hyperbaric has done a great job with their customer service aspect and being able to meet those expectations that customers are looking for.
Great. Thank you so much, Joyce. Well, Joyce, I appreciate the time you're spending with us today. And thank you, everyone, for attending this session. If you want to learn more about Good Foods products, visit www.goodfoods.com. And we'll see you in the next session. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you.